Hi, welcome to Photoshop Basic Concepts. This is part 2, and I'm going to try to zip through the last items here. I've got this picture, and I'm going to drag some of the other pictures all together. Number 16 talks about how to arrange open documents, because when you open documents in Photoshop, they open in tabs. And that's fine, except when you want to start putting them together, it's kind of hard to do so. You can pull off and then drag over, but that can get complicated too, or you can go to Window. And if you go to Arrange, you have different options. So if you have a bunch of things open, you could go 6 up. That means 6 items up at the same time. So that way, if I wanted to, say, pull this hamster over, then I would take my Move tool or press V. I'd point to my hamster and just click and drag until I get a plus sign, and then let go. And then it goes there. And so I could do that with multiple ones of these. If I wanted to bring all these over, you click on it first, and then just drag over. Click on it first, and then drag over. Now, it's possible that at some point, you're going to have pictures that won't drag over. For example, this guy. This one won't drag over, and I try, but I get this no sign over and over again. And that is because if we look at this tab, the color mode that this one uses is called index color mode. This is a common problem with GIF image format. GIF images only have 256 colors, and so for whatever reason, they don't play nicely with these other color modes, which is RGB, which is the most common, which has 16 million colors. So to change that, you simply go to Image and Mode, and you just switch it to match all those other ones, which would be RGB. Once it's switched to RGB, this layer, which a minute ago said Index, now is called Layer 1, and you'll be able to drag it over. Now, to put them all back into tabs, simply go to Window and Arrange, and then consolidate all of them to tabs, and they're back into tabs. And then I've got my one main image here. Now, I do recommend that you name your images, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to have you sit here and watch me name them all, but you just double-click and press Enter to name your images. To tell what's what, you simply can turn these eyeballs on and off and deal with them one at a time. So I'm going to deal with this first one here. We're going to talk about the erasers. There are multiple erasers built in. Now later on, erasers won't be the best tool to use, but for now, that's what we're going to use to remove the background. There's the plain old eraser, which just does this kind of thing, like you would do in old-fashioned paint. There's the background eraser, which when you put your crosshair, that plus sign, on something, it'll erase that color, but it will ignore other colors. Kind of hard to get that little piece there. I'd have to switch to my regular eraser. There we go. Okay, and so that's the background eraser. Now that one I'm kind of having problems with because his color here, he has some light colors in his fur, so that's not the greatest either. Now again, I'm going to keep that history panel up because I can back up in my history a bunch of steps at once without having to hit erase, 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 or undo, undo, undo. And then the third eraser is the magic eraser. Now the magic eraser has a special setting called tolerance. If the tolerance is low, it doesn't erase as much, but it's a one-click eraser if it can get to all the sides. So all this is connected white area. So if I click, there it goes, and it erases. Now I'm going to undo that. If I up this tolerance, it's less picky, so it will erase more. So if I go to 73 and click it, see, that's a bad time for my hamster. Okay? So you have to pay close attention to that tolerance. It just depends on the picture as to what that number needs to be. See, I'm still losing part of him. So again, I'm going to go down. So because he's got a pretty good solid background, I really don't have to have a very high tolerance, and it gets rid of most of that background. Now, in order to position him, I would use my Move tool. Again, that's here. Click and drag to move around. To modify him as far as resizing, you would press Control and T to access transform handles. You should never size up. So never get it too small to where you have to then turn around and size up, because once you make it small and you check mark it, if you go big again, it's going to get pixelated. When you resize, hold Shift and pull from a corner so you don't smash it. If I don't hold Shift, this can happen. And as much as you think your hand is steady, I promise you it's not. So Control T, hold Shift, pull from a corner, and then hit Enter or press the check mark, or you can just double click. All right, so now I've got this in here. I'm going to stick him down here on the ground, and then there he is. Now, likewise, we talked earlier about how you can go up to mirror the image. Well, if I tried to do that now, if I went up here and I went to edit transform and I flipped this whole thing horizontal, it would flip the whole picture sometimes horizontal. Now in this case, it actually didn't, it worked out. But if you press Control T and right click and go to flip horizontal, that's kind of the easiest way to do it. You can also rotate by pushing, pointing outside here and just going like so. And then again, press enter, hit the check mark or double click to set that down. Now, if you're zoomed in on the image, and I talked about that navigator panel earlier, if I'm zoomed in on the image really closely and I want to zoom out, you can, or I want to move around, you can take this little hand and move it, or while I'm out here, I can just press the space bar on my keyboard, and that does the same thing. And that gives me the hand tool, and then I can pick up and move the item using the hand tool. And it does the exact same thing as if I was using this tool as well. Okay, that's how you can move around the image. And again, Control plus and Control minus work as well. So we've gone over the erasers. Let me go ahead and show you one more eraser. So let's go over here to turning on the this little cat here. I'm going to press Control T, of course. Make sure you're on the right layer, and I'm not. So I'm going to hit my check mark and press on the right layer. Now I can press Control T. Now here's where your navigator comes in handy. This picture's hanging off. So if I zoom way out and then I hold shift and pull in, we get this to a better size, and then hit enter, and then I can use. And again, this one probably is going to be one that works out really well with the magic eraser. Bam, there it goes, background gone. Perfect. All right. One of the last items that's listed in this particular packet is adding text. And your text is added using the type tool. It's a T. Just give it a click. At the top on your options bar, you're going to see your fonts. You've got all kinds of options for fonts. Some fonts will have a drop-down arrow here, which will allow you to access like bold and italic versions of a font, like this one. But not every font has that. And then here is your font size. You can choose from the drop-down, or you can point to this TT and just drag your mouse over, get a bigger size. Here's alignment buttons, and then here is the font color. So if I click here, I can choose my color. I can pull it off of my cat down here and pick this orange-brown color. And then to type, you just simply click one time and let go. You'll see your cursor blink, and then you can type it in. Press your check mark, grab your move tool, and move it into position. You can press Control T to resize your text, but again, hold shift so you don't smash it down. That's of course going to change the font size from what you had, but because text is considered a vector, you can actually resize it that way and there's no harm done. As a kind of little bonus here at the top next to the color box, if you're on your type tool and you're on a text layer, you can press this and that will allow you to warp your text. So you can make it arc. That's a little much, but you can make it arc a little bit. You can even add some distortion on one end or the other, like so. There you go. That should cover 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 of the basic Photoshop concepts packet. Let me know if you have questions, and hopefully that review keeps all of this fresh in your mind.